There's a psychological truth every narcissist fears you'll discover, a weakness so fundamental to their structure that, once revealed, it completely dissolves the power they hold over you. This vulnerability isn't hidden in complex theories or sophisticated strategies. It pulses at the very core of the narcissistic condition, like an empty heart that constantly needs to be fed to keep beating. Have you ever wondered why the narcissist in your life seems so powerful, so convincing, so capable of making you question your own reality? Why they manage to leave you confused, doubting your perceptions, always feeling at a disadvantage? The answer isn't in their strength. It's in your unconscious generosity. It's in what you offer without realizing it. Depth psychology teaches us that behind every mask of superiority lies a desperate existential void. The narcissist isn't powerful because of what they possess, but because of what they manage to extract from you. They are an alchemist in reverse, transforming your light into fuel for their projected shadow. Carl Jung revealed that the narcissist's grandiose persona is a psychic compensation for a deep wound of inadequacy. But Jung went further. He showed that this compensation only works when it finds a mirror willing to reflect the illusion. Without that mirror, the persona collapses. Without their energetic supply, the emotional vampire withers. But here's what most people don't understand. You don't need to fight the narcissist. You don't need to prove them wrong. You don't need to convince them of anything. In fact, every attempt at direct confrontation only strengthens what they need most: your total attention, your emotional energy, your intense reaction. The narcissist is like a flame that only exists as long as you fan the fire. Remove the oxygen, and it naturally goes out. This is the weakness they will never admit, because admitting it would be to acknowledge that all their grandeur is an illusion sustained by the generosity of others. For decades, we've observed victims of narcissistic abuse wearing themselves out, trying to reason with their tormentors, trying to make them see their own cruelty. This approach fails because it starts from an incorrect premise: that the narcissist wants to change, that they are capable of genuine empathy, that there's a healthy core within them waiting to be awakened. The truth is simpler and more liberating. They don't need to change for you to be free. You don't need to heal them to heal yourself. You don't need them to acknowledge your wounds for them to heal. The key to your liberation lies in understanding exactly what the source of their power over you is. Imagine if you discovered that every time you react, argue, try to explain yourself, or seek their approval, you are literally feeding the machine that oppresses you. Imagine if you knew there was a psychological switch that, when turned off, makes the entire illusion of power unravel. But what Jung discovered about narcissistic dependence on external supply completely changes how you can deal with this manipulative dynamic. And this discovery will determine whether you remain trapped in the web of emotional control or finally become free to reclaim your stolen essence. Look within now. How many times have you found yourself explaining your actions to someone who had already decided you were wrong? How many arguments did you enter believing that if you just found the right words, you could make that person understand your point of view? How many times have you caught yourself seeking approval from someone who constantly criticizes you? How many times have you tried to prove your worth to someone who seems to find fault in everything you do? If these questions resonated with you, it's because you're seeing your own projected shadow. You're recognizing the moments when you became the mirror reflecting a narcissist's illusory grandeur. While you seek peace through explanation, they feed on your desperation. While you try to prove you're a good person, they harvest the energy of your need for validation. While you wear yourself out trying to resolve conflicts they create, they grow stronger with your emotional exhaustion. This is the brutal reality your higher self wants you to see. Every moment you react emotionally to narcissistic provocation, you are giving them exactly what they need to continue existing in the grandiose form they know. Do you remember the last time you tried to reason with them? How did you feel afterward? Confused, frustrated, questioning your own sanity? This didn't happen by chance. It happened because you just fed a psychological mechanism that specifically thrives on your confusion and internal questioning. The narcissist doesn't argue to resolve. They argue to consume. They don't criticize to improve. They criticize to drain. They don't provoke you to grow together. They provoke you because your reaction is the fuel that keeps their mask of superiority functioning. But have you noticed something even more revealing? In moments when you simply didn't react, when you remained silent or just said, "I understand," and went on with your life. How did they behave? Did they become more aggressive? Did they try to provoke even more? Did they make more absurd accusations? This happened because you just cut off the energy supply that keeps them psychologically alive. Your indifference is their kryptonite. Your conscious silence is the poison to the grandiose persona. Your lack of reaction is the death of the shadow projection they need to maintain, to avoid narcissistic collapse. You are not responsible for feeding anyone's ego. You are not obligated to be the stage where others enact their fictitious grandeur. You are not born to be the fuel that sustains others' illusions. Your true power isn't in winning arguments. It's in not entering them. It's not in proving them wrong. It's in not needing that proof to live your life. It's not in making them see their mistakes. It's in seeing that you don't need their approval to be who you truly are. Do you recognize this trap? It's because you've been a target of this pattern. You were trained to believe that your emotional energy was currency for healthy relationships. But healthy relationships don't drain your energy. They multiply it. And today, you will understand how this vampiric machine disguised as a person operates. You will discover exactly what the source of dependence is that keeps the narcissist psychologically alive. And most importantly, how to definitively withdraw that supply, reclaiming your emotional sovereignty and freeing your essence from the captivity of others' manipulation. To understand the narcissist's single true weakness, you first need to understand what fuels their psychological existence. There's a fundamental concept in depth psychology called narcissistic supply, and it explains why certain people seem like energetic vampires disguised as human relationships. Narcissistic supply is any form of attention, emotional energy, or reaction that you offer to the narcissist, which they use to maintain their illusion of grandeur. It doesn't matter if this attention is positive or negative, if it's praise or confrontation, if it's love or anger. For the narcissist's hungry ego, everything transforms into the same vital fuel. Imagine the narcissist as an actor who only exists as long as there's an audience. Remove the audience, and there's no more show. Remove your attention, and the grandiose performance loses all meaning. But there's a crucial difference between this actor and real actors. A true actor has an identity offstage. The narcissist does not. The narcissist's psychic structure is like a house built on sand foundations. From the outside, it might seem imposing, impressive, even intimidating, but inside, there's only an empty echo of inadequacy that constantly needs to be filled with external validation. Without this validation, the entire house collapses. Jung identified that the narcissist suffers from a primordial wound of inadequacy that they compensate for through the projection of a grandiose persona. But this persona only works when it finds a mirror willing to reflect it. You are that mirror. Your emotional reaction is the reflection that gives life to their illusion. When you argue with a narcissist, they aren't interested in resolving the conflict. They are feeding on the emotional intensity you are generating. When you try to prove you're right, they feed on your need for validation. When you justify yourself, they absorb the energy of your insecurity. When you get angry, they strengthen themselves with the force of your rage. That's why arguments with narcissists are always circular and exhausting. They aren't designed to reach conclusions. They are designed to extract emotional energy. You leave the discussion drained because you were literally drained. Your energy was transferred to keep their ego inflated. The narcissist is like an electronic device that needs to be constantly plugged into an outlet to function. You are the outlet. Your attention is the electricity. Remove the power and the device simply stops working. But here's the most liberating insight. Their dependence on your energy is also their greatest vulnerability. They need you more than you need them. They cannot exist psychologically without external supply. You can exist perfectly well without feeding another's ego. This is the difference between a healthy human being and an energetic vampire. You have an internal source of self-esteem and identity. They only have external projections and borrowed reflections. You are emotionally self-sufficient. They are a psychological parasite. And this absolute dependence on narcissistic supply is exactly the weakness you can use to your advantage. Not through confrontation, which only offers more fuel, but through the conscious and definitive withdrawal of the sustenance that keeps the illusion functioning. The first manifestation of this fundamental weakness is the compulsive need for a reaction. The narcissist cannot tolerate your indifference because it directly threatens their psychological existence. Observe how they behave when you don't react to provocations. They intensify attacks, create bigger dramas, and seek increasingly elaborate ways to capture your emotional attention. This happens because your lack of emotional response is interpreted by their unconscious as an existential threat. It's as if you're turning off the machine that keeps them running. They literally don't know how to exist without the fuel of your reaction. You can observe this dependence in how they manipulate conversations so they always revolve around them. No matter what topic you try to bring up, they find a way to redirect it to their own experiences, their own problems, their own achievements or victimizations. This isn't just common selfishness. It's a desperate psychological need to keep the focus of attention always on them. The second manifestation of this weakness is hypersensitivity to criticism, combined with an inability for self-reflection. The narcissist can mercilessly criticize you, but the slightest criticism directed at them provokes disproportionately explosive reactions. This reveals that behind the mask of superiority lies an ego so fragile that any questioning represents a threat of disintegration. When you criticize a narcissist, even constructively, you are directly attacking the illusion they need to maintain to psychologically survive. The explosive reaction isn't about the content of your criticism. It's about the threat to the illusory structure that sustains their entire identity. Use this information to your advantage by understanding that you will never be able to have an honest conversation about their problems. Any attempt will be interpreted as an attack and will result in counterattacks, blame shifting, and emotional manipulation. Save your energy for relationships where honesty is welcome. The third manifestation of this weakness is the need to control narratives. The narcissist always needs to be the hero of the story, the wronged victim, or the misunderstood savior. They cannot tolerate versions of reality where they are not the protagonist in some way. Observe how they rewrite the history of conflicts between you, how they always find a way to portray themselves as the wronged party, how they distort facts to keep their grandiose self-image intact. This compulsive need to control the narrative reveals how much they depend on external validation to maintain their sense of identity. The fourth manifestation is the inability to genuinely celebrate your achievements. When something good happens in your life, the narcissist might seem happy for you superficially, but they will inevitably find a way to diminish your joy or insert themselves as responsible for your success. This happens because your independent happiness threatens the dynamic of dependence they need to maintain. If you can be happy without their approval or participation, it questions all the importance they have attributed to themselves in your life. The fifth manifestation of this weakness is the constant need to create drama. Periods of peace and stability are unbearable for the narcissist because in these situations, their presence becomes unnecessary. They need problems, conflicts, and crises to position themselves as a savior, counselor, or victim. Use this understanding to identify when the dramas in your life are artificial, created specifically to generate the emotional chaos they feed on. Your tranquility is a direct threat to the manipulation system they have built around you. The sixth manifestation of this absolute weakness is the inability to maintain relationships when there's nothing left to extract. The narcissist abandons people who have become useless for their narcissistic supply, but always returns when they perceive an opportunity for vampiric reconnection. This reveals that they don't form genuine emotional bonds. They form contracts of energetic extraction. When you understand that your function in their life is purely utilitarian, you can use this information for your protection. Healthy people invest in relationships even during difficult periods. Narcissists only invest when there's a guaranteed return of narcissistic supply. The seventh manifestation is the constant need for triangulation. The narcissist always needs a third person in the dynamic to validate their version of reality, or to create jealousy and insecurity. This happens because they cannot maintain a healthy bilateral relationship where they would be exposed as an ordinary individual, without the grandeur they need to project. Observe how they always mention other people who agreed with them, who praised them, or who disagreed with you. How they create imaginary competitions where you need to prove you're better than others. How they use comparisons to diminish your self-esteem. All of this serves to keep you in a state of insecurity, generating more emotional energy to be consumed. The eighth manifestation of this weakness is the inability to be alone with themselves. The narcissist always needs external stimulation, always needs an audience, always needs someone to impress or control. Silence and solitude are unbearable because under these conditions, they come face to face with the inner void they've spent their entire life trying to avoid. Use this understanding to realize why they always interrupt your moments of peace, why they always show up when you're doing well on your own, why they always demand immediate attention when you're busy with your own activities. The ninth and most revealing manifestation is the inability for genuine self-love. All the external grandiosity is a compensation for the total absence of real self-esteem. The narcissist cannot truly love themselves because they don't know their true self. They only know the mask they built to impress others. This means that every time you offer genuine love to a narcissist, you are feeding an illusion, not nurturing a real person. True love requires vulnerability, authenticity, and reciprocity. The narcissist is incapable of all three. Now that you know these 9 manifestations of narcissistic weakness, the central question becomes, how can you use this information to your advantage? How can you transform this knowledge into real freedom? The answer lies in a practice that depth psychology calls the strategic withdrawal of narcissistic supply. This doesn't mean seeking revenge, attacking, or trying to hurt them. It simply means stopping the feeding of the machine that consumes your vital energy. When you stop reacting emotionally to provocations, you withdraw the main fuel. When you stop justifying yourself, you withdraw the validation they seek. When you stop trying to make them understand your point of view, you withdraw the attention that keeps them psychologically existing. And the most beautiful thing of all, when you withdraw narcissistic supply, you're not just protecting yourself. You're reconnecting with your own internal source of energy, with your true essence that had been hijacked to serve others' illusory grandeur. The narcissist only has power over you as long as you believe you need their validation to be who you are. The moment you understand that your identity is completely independent of others' opinions, the entire power dynamic reverses. Now that you understand the manifestations of narcissistic dependence on external supply, the time for practical application has come. The strategic withdrawal of narcissistic supply is not a confrontation technique. It is a practice of preserving your vital energy and reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. The first fundamental practice is what we call conscious emotional disengagement. When the narcissist tries to provoke a reaction through criticism, accusations, or direct attacks, your response should be neutral and factual. Instead of explaining your motives or defending your character, simply acknowledge the information without emotionally engaging. Practical example. When they say, "You never do anything right," instead of listing your achievements or justifying yourself, simply respond, "I understand your perspective," and change the subject or disengage from the conversation. You are not agreeing with them. You are refusing to feed the drama. The second practice is the broken mirror technique. The narcissist needs you to function as a mirror reflecting their grandeur. Breaking this mirror means stopping your reactions to their performances. When they talk about their achievements expecting to impress you, respond with a simple, "That's interesting," without showing exaggerated admiration. When they create dramas expecting you to rush to resolve them, remain calm and ask, "What do you plan to do about it?" returning the responsibility to them. You are withdrawing from the role of an admiring audience or a compulsive savior. The third fundamental practice is establishing energy boundaries. Start noticing how much mental and emotional energy you spend thinking about them, worrying about their reactions, anticipating their needs, or trying to decipher them. This energy is yours. Reclaim it. Establish specific times to deal with issues related to them, if contact must be maintained. Outside of these times, redirect your attention to your own needs, projects, and healthy relationships. You are training your mind not to live according to their demands. The fourth practice is systematic internal validation. The narcissist undermined your self-confidence by making you depend on external approval. Now you need to rebuild your capacity for self-validation. Keep a daily record of your achievements no matter how small. Acknowledge your own progress without needing external confirmation. Celebrate your victories silently. Learn to trust your own perception of reality. You are disconnecting from dependence on external validation and reconnecting with your internal source of self-esteem. The fifth and most powerful practice is cultivating genuine disinterest. This doesn't mean feigning indifference. It means developing a real indifference to their opinions, moods, and manipulations. Your emotional well-being can no longer depend on another person's state of mind. When you reach the point where their provocations genuinely don't affect you, where their criticisms don't generate self-doubt, where their dramas don't create emotional urgency in you, then you will have completely cut off the narcissistic supply. Remember, this practice isn't about punishing the narcissist. It's about freeing your vital energy from emotional captivity. It's about reconnecting with your true essence that had been hijacked to serve another's ego. The consistent application of these practices will create something the narcissist cannot comprehend or combat: your genuine indifference. And in your indifference lies your total freedom. You stop being the fuel that keeps others' illusions running and become the sovereign guardian of your own journey. Your emotional independence is the kryptonite of narcissistic manipulation. Use it consciously. You've changed. The moment you understood that the narcissist's only weakness is their absolute dependence on your emotional supply, you stopped being the same person who began this journey of discovery. You can no longer pretend you don't know how the vampiric machine disguised as a relationship works. You are now the conscious guardian of your own vital energy. You are no longer the unconscious mirror reflecting others' grandeur. You are no longer the fuel source that keeps illusions running. You are the sovereign expression of your true self. The freedom you've gained isn't just about protecting yourself from the narcissist. It's about discovering who you truly are when you're no longer performing to please, when you're no longer justifying yourself to be accepted, when you're no longer offering your energy as currency for crumbs of approval. Your conscious indifference to others' manipulations isn't coldness, it's wisdom. Your refusal to feed artificial dramas isn't insensitivity, it's intelligent self-preservation. Your decision to no longer compulsively explain yourself isn't arrogance, it's emotional sovereignty. You've discovered that true strength isn't in winning arguments with manipulators, it's in not needing to engage in them. It's not in proving narcissists wrong. It's in not requiring that proof to live your life. It's not in making energetic vampires see their mistakes. It's in understanding that you weren't born to be anyone's therapist. From now on, every time someone tries to drain your energy through provocations, you will remember, this person needs my reaction more than I need their approval. Every time someone tries to make you doubt your own perception, you will recall, my reality does not need to be validated by those who intentionally distort it. Every time someone creates artificial dramas expecting you to rush to resolve them, you will know, my tranquility is more valuable than any performance of others' emotional urgency. You are now the unmasker of your own story. You are no longer the victim who feeds emotional parasites. You are the alchemist who transmutes manipulation into wisdom, who transforms wounds into conscious protection, who converts dependence into sovereignty. The journey of true individuation began when you understood that you don't need to be indispensable to anyone to have value, that you don't need to solve the problems of energetic vampires to have purpose, that you don't need to be the savior of wounded egos to have importance. Your importance lies in your ability to be authentically yourself, without masks, without performances, without the need to impress or please anyone. Your reclaimed essence is the greatest treasure this journey could offer you. Comment on which of the manifestations of narcissistic dependence most alerted you to the patterns you were unconsciously feeding, like if you felt the courage to withdraw the emotional supply that kept others' illusions running. Subscribe to continue this journey of individuation and protection of your vital energy. The liberation is just beginning. Reclaim your essence. Protect your energy. Be the sovereign guardian of your own journey. Unmask dependence, free yourself completely.